Hello and welcome to today's broadcast. Thanks for tuning in. I've used the hashtag Vote Blue for tomorrow or Vote Blue tomorrow to highlight that the midterm elections are tomorrow, and it's really important because since 2012, was it 2010, Republicans have turned out in greater numbers when Democrats have succeeded in a presidential election. So midterm elections have shown a lot of negative partisanship energy, meaning if they've lost 2 years before, they turn out with increased strength in the midterms. And a lot of Republican voters would probably agree with a statement that they are pocketbook voters, i.e., they've got blinkers on in terms of what they for just concentrating on what they think they'll receive from Republicans in office and ignoring the reality of what people typically receive from Republicans in office, which is undermined infrastructure, less funding for schools, lowering standards, lowering public safety, just crumbled institutions and crumbled outcomes that are associated with shared values. Everybody wants their kids to have the opportunity to succeed in school, and everybody wants to have safe roads to travel on. But Republican politicians have often been very adept at manipulating members of the public in a way to get them to focus on trick gains. The voters of Kansas learned that the hard way after having a Republican governor and having schools become so underfunded that parents were being asked to participate in bake sales every weekend in order to sustain funding for extracurricular activities and just diverse in-school activities, such as having a Spanish teacher or a music teacher. And most people want their kids to be able to compete with other high achievers and with other middle achievers, and without access to those learning enhancing activities, drama, music, language learning, schools are a lot less engaging and motivating for children. I'll tell you, my kids look forward to days at school where they have more special activities with special teachers, and it's not just a more humdrum day. So your ability to learn maths and engage enthusiastically with reading is also governed by how much fun you have doing activities that suit the human condition. So what I have up on this direction here is a document published by the Joint Economic Committee from Congress in June 2016, and they were just reporting on something that is a very robustly documented phenomenon, but often under-discussed, and that's that economies do worse under Republican presidents versus Democratic presidents. So I need people to be talking about this before an election in which they are potentially seduced by the myth that Republicans are in any way, shape, or form good at economic management or good for the economy, when the reverse is true. Republicans are terrible for the economy. Republicans are terrible at economic management. Giving people tax cuts, particularly at higher echelons of income, may sound as if it has a logic to it, but the logic is wealth pandering. The logic is not economic juicing. So let's see. Whilst the reasons are neither fully understood nor completely attributable to policy choices, data shows that the economy has performed much better during Democratic administrations. Economic growth, job creation, and industrial production have all been stronger. In fact, a recent paper by economists Alan Blinder and Mark Watson of Princeton University states the superiority of economic performance under Democrats rather than Republicans is nearly ubiquitous. It holds almost regardless of how you define success. Fact-checking groups have investigated similar statements and have found time and time again that they are true. Moreover, past research shows that stock market returns are also higher under Democrats. So this was data compiled and published in 2016. But when you look at what Trump did to the American economy through purposefully, willfully mismanaging COVID, in part to preserve a trade agreement with China that he wanted to trumpet to paper over the manufacturing recession that started in 2019 and he wanted to conceal, but also as a way of increasing the binary polarization of mail-in voting. Trump wanted to downplay COVID. He's admitted to downplaying COVID, but he said it was because he wanted to be a cheerleader for the United States. And that's a statement that doesn't stand up to any type of interrogation with any substance. He wanted to cheerlead for the appearance of COVID as being a myth, to play into stereotypes of Democrats as being overly cautious, to play into stereotypes of Dr. Fauci being a hoaxer who, instead of a devoted public servant who spent decades involved in research and being a world leader in research into bacterial and viral diseases, instead somehow he's just a prankster who wanted to hurt Trump. And of course, when you have a strong man in office, a strong man, performative strongman person, they use all of their personal charisma and their ability to manipulate and spread untruths to advance a self-serving narrative. And in Trump's case, that narrative was, they're all trying to get you to lockdown. They're all buzzkills. They're all party poopers. I want the economy to flourish. It's like, yeah, if you let a virus flourish, you're not letting the economy flourish. It put the economy in the toilet, because ultimately, when people can see death happening around them and they hear from health professionals that hospitals are overfull and that you may not even be able to get a hospital bed if you've been involved in a car accident or have a pregnancy complication, then people choose to stay home to minimize the amount of destruction happening all around. But Trump opened the gate to a lot of that devastation from COVID, and did so that his supporters would feel that Democrats were pushing a hoax and would feel confident in voting in person on the day of election. And various Republicans were complicit in a strategy of passing legislation that mailed-in votes had to be counted after the voting in person on election day of 2020. They pushed that strategy and they passed that legislation. So even early votes, even all of the enthusiastic amount of mail-in votes from people who had concerns about COVID, that would just help to sort methodologies by party loyalty. Because if you were a loyal Republican and you believed Trump had credibility, then you said, you're more likely to say COVID's a hoax. I'll vote in person because I'm not afraid of this made-up disease. The risk has been exaggerated. I'm probably immune. It's probably nothing. And then Trump could claim that, yep, all of these red votes that you're seeing on election day that are being counted first because Republican-governed states have specifically passed legislation to count the mailed-in votes from COVID-cautious people after the in-person votes. Well, there you go. That's my red wave, and now it's being stolen from me. So it advanced a narrative, and Trump knew that he would be able to persuade some gullible, angry people to attack the Capitol on his behalf. He had every confidence that there were an army of people. And you can see that in his remark from 2017, that he could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and not lose a single vote. He also believed that he could persuade people to shoot on his behalf in order to help him retain office if he told them that this was justice and this was patriotic and that he represents America and that America was under attack because he lost office and that was an injustice and that was a theft. Trump believed, and he was right, that he could talk a sizable number of people into turning up and attacking police officers and attacking the Capitol building of their own country in an effort to install Trump as an unelected dictator. Because it's not just that the election was stolen from him. If he was successfully able to overturn the results of an election, then he doesn't have to fear the outcome of any future elections, because he has demonstrated his capacity to render election results null and void. See, I haven't been on the screen for a little bit. I don't know if I've got any comments. I've got Christopher. Hello, Christopher, saying hi there. That's nice to see you. Just to let people on Twitter know, you might be able to see me, but I cannot see any Twitter commentary. But I can see commentary from YouTube or Twitch. And that's just a flaw in the system at StreamYard, but maybe one day they will sort that out. So let's make this graph bigger so people can see. The economy grows faster under Democratic presidents. Obama, Clinton, Carter, Kennedy, Johnson, and Truman. So the average of that relative to the results from Reagan, Nixon, Eisenhower, and Bush, the two Bushes. There's the blue graphs. The blue bar graphs have advanced further. So the average of Democratic presidents, 3.9. The average of those Republican presidents, 2.5. I'd love to see an updated version of this graph as well. But we can also look at graphs of how Biden has generated a very high number of jobs per month. Oh, look, private sector job growth has also been faster under Democratic presidents, average 2.5%, average under Republican presidents, only 1%. I guess it's just all of the different factors, all of the different policies average out so differently because Democrats are committed to serving the public. And when the public is well catered to, the economy functions more smoothly. And when Republicans get in office, even if they do pass some legislation that's ostensibly serving the public, fundamentally, they are more committed to advancing the interests of their special interest lobby groups, whether it be gun manufacturers, white supremacists, white male supremacists, Christian nationalists, or polluting industry executives that want the liberty to contribute more pollution to the air and water, then those interests being advanced harm enough people so that economic activity contracts. It's interesting. All right, now we'll go to a different screen because there's a few different videos we can watch today. The very potent one that I hope will give people a little bit of a boost and a giddy up is Trump complaining at his rally that the media never turn the cameras around. He's probably just saying that out of habit almost. He always says it, but one person did, and they saw that half the people had left while he was still speaking. So it's good because it's got a panoramic visual to it. I'm going to watch a tiny bit of a Trump rally. It's 25 seconds. Watch the people that have left.
And we will again end catch and release. We will end chain migration. We will end the visa lottery. These are things you don't have to know too much about them, but trust me, they're there. We will end the immigration.
Okay, so see, this is sparse people. People have left this crowd. It's a little windy, but he's sounding a little tired. His message is a little worn. And I will note, because my husband pointed this out to me the other day, he's a smart man, that all of those diatribes that we were just hearing against migration practices, this is a contributing factor to inflation because Trump put certain measures in place to reduce immigration. He claimed he was targeting only illegal migration, but he actually substantially reduced legal migration as well. He ended a lot of temporary protection visas. He introduced and Congress, Republican legislators introduced measures to curb immigration, and he used some executive orders to say, well, COVID, so there's a back to Mexico protocol to sharply reduce both documented and undocumented migration. And this creates a labor bottleneck, probably being felt in a concentrated fashion in the agricultural industry and in the service industries, in hospitality and in healthcare assistance as well. There's a lot of industries where Americans do not flock to take up those type of jobs, and migrants who were grateful for the opportunity to live in a relatively safe country where democracy had been functional for a long time and democracy had a strong scaffolding system to protect it. And so there weren't a lot of corrupt activities or violent activities happening, and people came and relished that chance to offer safety to their families and use that gratitude in energy to sustain themselves working in difficult jobs that are physically arduous, very taxing, and ones that Americans are often unwilling to take because they have other opportunities. But when agricultural industries, agricultural companies can't get people to pick produce and produce rots in the fields, when people are undersupplied with labor to wait tables or to look after people in their homes, it's an inflationary pressure on wages, and people might think that sounds good, and overall it is good to get higher wages, but if it's contributing significantly to inflation and you have this backlog of people who would like to join their relatives and their family in America and who would bring energy, who would open up those bottlenecks that are constricting parts of the economy, that would be really helpful. Because other inflationary pressures are obviously Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and that invasion has involved a lot of sabotage of agricultural goods being exported from Ukraine, but it's a disruption to the chain of events that are involved in selling things around the world, and that kind of supply blockages together with COVID-related supply chain blockages all contributes to this upward pressure on prices. And that's a problem that's happening globally. It's got the war in Russia has a global impact. So it won't fix things putting Republicans in charge of Congress or giving them seats in the House or the Senate to give them a congressional majority at any level. They will make things worse on purpose to hurt the Democrats' chances in the presidential election in 2024. They will want to make things worse so they can blame Biden. They are very untethered from reality, and they're very invested in creating a plausible manufactured reality for the voters of the United States in which crime is rising. It's not. Overall, violent crime is falling, and where crime is rising, it's typically a significant factor in rising crime is loosened gun laws, which might make individuals feel like they can do more to protect their family, but more people possessing guns contributes to higher levels of gun circulation amongst non-law-abiding citizens who take guns from unlocked cars, who smash windows to take guns, and then have all of these lethal weapons in their possession that facilitate violent crime. So violent crime is rising in various Republican-governed cities particularly. All right, so did we enjoy seeing that Trump audience leave? I'm going to watch it one more time.
We will stop the crime wave in Democrat-run cities.
Blah, blah, blah. It's actually Republican-governed cities that have higher crime rates at the moment. Crime is increasing in areas where gun laws are lax, and that's a byproduct of electing Republicans to office, which is an unfortunate byproduct of people believing nonsense. Look at the sparsity of that crowd. They are not enthused. People are leaning their head down. They are looking kind of cold and tired. And I guess part of that is because Trump doesn't tend to pay venue operators, so they have to have an outdoor venue, because when you have a backlog of unpaid creditors in relation to hosting rally events, then you have less options for taking a crowd indoors. All right, let's watch something else. I read an article about how to encourage voter turnout in a very potent way, and that is to nominate yourself as captain of a little team, and you show your friends that you're invested. People behave better when they feel they're being observed. So you don't even have to say, oh, vote for Democrats. You don't even have to persuade anybody politically. If you have friends, then you say, hey, midterm elections tomorrow. And you tell them what you're doing. Hey, I'm voting. Midterm elections tomorrow. Smiley face, emoji of your choice. How effective would that be at addressing one of the big fallout consequences of disinformation and pro-Republican mythology that's really destructive? You address the complacency. You address the demoralized people by saying, hey, midterms tomorrow. You make them feel less adrift on a sea of demoralized sadness. You make them feel seen. You make them feel connected to you. You message them. You let them know. You know there's an election tomorrow, and you know that they are capable of voting, that they're a citizen of the United States. Don't bother messaging me. I cannot vote. I am not a citizen of the United States, but here I am. I live here. I have a temporary visa for as a spouse of a person employed. And we want the best for not only the United States. He and I want the best for the world and for our children, for our collective futures and for our future as a family. We want to have a livable climate. We want to have, sure, we're enjoying warm weather today, but we understand that it's not just, yay, hooray, warm weather during fall. It's another data point showing that there has been significant temperature change, which means it's not like a bath that's like, oh, good, this is a nice warm level, we can stop running the tap. This is a symptom of a calamitous increase in temperature, because the pace of change is so fast that it gives credence to the predictions of scientists that we are going to have a huge number, that we are on a huge trajectory of increasing temperature. That means other natural systems around the world are going to kick in and contribute to temperature increases as well. So regardless of what we do, our current increases in carbon output, carbon emissions, there's going to be methane emissions that are going to join in and compound this catastrophic level of climate heating. And we have to talk about it. This is why some people throw paint at paintings or soup. My husband doesn't agree with it. I wouldn't want to do it personally, but they understand the need to talk about it. They understand the weight of normalcy bias that keeps us hoping for the best. Oh, well, maybe we don't have to do anything. Maybe everything will just work out. It's not on the path to just work out. We have to change who's in power. We have to change who holds. I might have to go get my water. If I forget to bring water to me, with me to the broadcasting table, then I have this happen. And it's always a thing. You've got to stay hydrated when you talk a lot. But in the meantime, I'm going to bring up this. Look, here is this graph. I'll go get my water in a second, but have a look while I'm gone. A new report from the Pew Research Center indicates there's been no recent increase in the overall violent crime rate. Crime rates are still much lower today than they were in the 90s. And although murder rates have increased, it's the least common crime. And speaking of murder rates, do we want our children to feel safe in their own schools? Do we want our children to be safe in their own schools? Do we want to be able to send them off for the day without having to say, oh, please, God, let there not be a repeat of what happened in Uvalde. Please, God, let there not be a repeat of what happened in Parkland. Please, God, let there not be a repeat of what happened in Sandy Hook. People can get governed by an anxiety that's so powerful it depresses the ability to think rationally. People can be so impacted by pain that they can't zoom out and correctly attribute the cause of the pain. Because if you zoom out and look big picture, who is making it easier to get a gun? Who is facilitating antisocial, depressed young men getting weapons, getting access to lethal weapons? It's the policies, it's the loyalty of members of the Republican Party that is predominantly responsible for the loosening of gun laws in various towns, in cities, and various states. And then overall in the United States as a whole, because if you pee in one corner of the swimming pool, those at the other end of the swimming pool are not safe from the consequences of your actions. We are all getting terrorized, emotionally terrorized, and some of us are suffering the more personal impacts. Those parents who have lost children, those children are impacted. It's not just, oh, the parents lost something. Those children had their lives ahead of them. Those children in Uvalde had gone to school and they deserved to reap the rewards of their own learning, their own good characters, their own caring parents, their own ability to exist in a loving family and a society that ostensibly values children. They deserved to go on to full and happy lives. They deserved to find love, to have a career, to potentially have children, to see another summer, another winter, another fall for years and years and decades. But Americans are some Americans. We don't overgeneralize, and we shouldn't negatively overgeneralize. Too many Americans in a stacked system, in a system that is stacked to favor conservative ideology, to favor voters who live in states dominated by acreage over population density, where we're still dealing with the fallout from compromises put in the Constitution, where people catered to the wishes of those with a set of morals that included rationalizing the enslavement of human beings. And we still have people who are part of a process to enslave as many people as possible because of that loophole in the 13th Amendment that says slavery is now no longer legal unless as a consequence of being imprisoned for a crime, which financially and emotionally incentivizes people to participate in any way they can in a system that will over vigorously and unjustly imprison people of color in order to perpetuate that dynamic they were comfortable with and that they looked to religion to justify, a dynamic that says there is inherent goodness and cleanliness and worth and value in being white, and it is not only profitable, but it is good and just to have others work for us and derive income for us and not be paid themselves. to lose their liberty and their freedom, and we profit. And a lot of religion sold Jesus as being a white person to perpetuate that idea of the inherent goodness being located, being manifested in a white color of skin. And lots of things were done to continue that word association between white and good, and conversely, black and not good. And I don't even want to repeat that, but it's a true phenomenon that people have sought to uphold that self-perpetuating worldview, and that we still have to all be mindful of how to wind it back, which does not mean infantilizing people of color in the United States and pretending that they are not personally responsible for their actions. They still are. Everybody's responsible for their own actions. Everybody that commits a crime is still and should be still be answerable to the justice system. But we have to hold to account those who have gone out of their way to criminalize activities like marijuana consumption, to make things a crime if they were things that Black people did that it would be easy to arrest them for. And there are still disproportionately high rates of arresting and indicting and prosecuting and convicting Black people in America for marijuana use, even though studies have shown white people and Black people are just equally as likely to consume marijuana. Christopher points out that Elon Musk decided to come a bit more out of the closet with recommending people vote for Republicans. And Elon Musk had previously also come out of the closet with saying, Ukraine should make concessions to Vladimir Putin for negotiations to end this war. I mean, nobody wants a war. It's like, yeah, Ukraine doesn't want to be invaded. So if you reward Putin for invading Ukraine and say, please, bully, I'll give you half of my lunch if you stop bullying me, you're incentivizing the bully to bully you the next day. So Elon Musk, in missing that logical step, showed himself to be someone whose interests are very captured by bad faith actors and the villains of the modern era. So he's pro-Putin, even though he claims ostensibly not to be. I'm just neutral. He'd also said, I'm going to own Twitter, but I think it's so important to be neutral. And then today he's like, yeah, sure, neutral. And I'm just recommending a Republican vote for neutral reasons to balance out a Democratic president with a Republican Congress. So you should try and make that happen. Neutral, fair and balanced, in the same way that Fox News is fair and balanced, in the same way that the mainstream media is fair and balanced when they often work quite hard to try and protect themselves from the manufactured outrage of the right. That's part of their strategy to constantly work the refs, to make the mainstream media more critical of Democrats in order to balance out their reporting on Republican corruption and misconduct. Oh yes, the Republican former president stole a bunch of documents and took them to his home, and even now continues to defend his theft of classified documents, top secret documents, any documents, by saying everybody does it. Well, the presidents steal documents. It's just only I get persecuted for it because they're so mean to me. So then the fair and balanced mainstream media has to say, yes, so he did that. So, Joe Biden misspoke about something. Do you know what I mean? Have you noticed that phenomenon of small transgressions or small examples of missteps being blown up as if just to tick a box of, well, we've equally been negative about Democrats and Republicans? And the driving consideration should not be we've been equally negative about Republicans and Democrats. The driving consideration should be we've been truthful about these consequential things that impact the American public, regardless of who did them, Democrats or Republicans. If it's Republicans doing the bad things, then you should be devoting more time reporting on that. But they are often owned by billionaires who benefit from Republican tax cuts targeted to billionaires. So they're highly motivated and incentivized to keep up this faux standard of journalistic ethics that involves somehow prioritizing balance over truth, balance over fairly reporting on the actual threats to American voters and accurately reporting on the very real pattern that Republicans are terrible for the economy, whether they're Republican governors, whether it's Republican presidents. Economic outcomes are worse. Private job generation is worse. On average, over all the decades since World War II. So yes, Elon Musk is a traitor and a sellout and an idiot. But I believe the figure is $27 billion of his own money that he put up for the purchase of Twitter. But there was also a sizable investment, reportedly from Saudi Arabia and potentially also China and maybe even Russia as well, because the Saudis and the Russians are friends, although maybe the Russians just keep doing what they're doing, which is using COVID misinformation to turn people against those in public office who have sought to act like responsible adults during a pandemic. That is to say, anybody associated with promoting public health, the Biden administration, blue governors, the people who took the pandemic seriously, people who understood that even if it's not always popular, even if the long-term benefits are not visible immediately or not visible to people who've been misinformed, you should do the right thing to protect citizens, to protect residents of the United States. So yes, Russia has been very good at leaning into people's natural tendency to distrust public health officials. You have to have a high degree of uniformity of message. And so Trump really did a lot to normalize sabotaging public health. So it helps other people come out of the woodwork because Trump said it. Trump said it was a hoax. So other people can also say, I'm a brave truth teller, willing to swim against the tide of information from doctors, researchers, health officials. And also I will say, masks are terrible for children. No, losing family members is terrible for children. The most impact you can have on educational outcomes is by having a caregiver die, whether it be a parent or a grandparent or both parents or both grandparents, or yourself being hospitalized. And it's relatively rare for children to be hospitalized, but children have died from COVID and continue to be hospitalized and die. Vaccine uptake rates are low in that population, and there could be more lives saved. But the whole concept of public health has been very substantially tarnished from the actions of bad faith actors and the gullible idiots who support them. Try not to say idiots. What language choice can I make to be better? Bad faith actors and those with a high level of gullibility, those people whose ability to interrogate their information sources, people with a paucity of media diversity as their input sources. I'm trying to find a better word than idiot, because disparaging people comes across as negative, and you want to call people in and not just call people out. So, bad faith actors and low information voters and those people with a high appetite for lies. Sometimes it's just a character failing to have a big appetite for lies, and you can call it out, because some people want to hear racist untruths. They want to hear that you can blame things on migrants. They want to hear, oh, we're all fine. It's just migrants bringing COVID. It's not the fact that so many have refused to wear masks or get vaccinated or socially distance. Christopher says lemmings, but lemmings is still a disparaging term, but I appreciate you playing with me the game of let's brainstorm some new terminology. Thank you. It's wonderful having people follow along with my goals. All right. The reason they talk about crime so much, just looking at Republican banging on about crime and Fox News running with it, and then other media networks following Fox's lead. The reason they talk about crime so much is because they've framed it as a black issue. It's a dog whistle. Yes, it is. It's the reason they found it so easy to convince each other that the summer of 2020 was nothing but thuggery. A lot of them sincerely believed there were no protests. So there were protests. They were very broad social justice protests as a product of mass revulsion at seeing the footage of a police officer in broad daylight. One police officer and 3 complicit police officers serving with him who killed George Floyd in broad daylight with witnesses observing, and just the audacity of that and the casualness of that brutality shocked so many and brought them on board, increased the intensity of their desire to say, we have to change, we have to do better, we have to let others know Black Lives Matter. You shouldn't be able to kill a man with impunity in the street during the day for nothing, for the crime of being a suspect of a $20 check fraud. That should not be a death sentence. And if it's a death sentence for a Black man, that means there is a level of callousness. There is a level of disregard for the worth of the life of a Black man in the United States that is sufficiently endemic in the police force that 4 police officers could commit this crime together in public and have the impudence to not fear a consequence. They are so comfortable in brutalizing a Black man to death in public, in front of witnesses, in front of recording equipment. So that was a very broad protest, and there were also riots. A lot of the convictions from those riots were of white people who could be described best as accelerationists, people who want to foment racial conflict so that white people can win the ensuing clash that they believe they're helping happen by committing crimes during times of civil unrest. So white people who started fires, white people who killed law enforcement officers, and as well as there was property damage, and it was an outpouring of anger, and there was an overflow of that. But more broadly speaking, there was peaceful protests. And I want us to talk about that. I don't want them to dominate the narrative with their false framing of the summer of 2020 was American cities being burned to the ground by Antifa and Black Lives Matter. It's a self-serving lie that helps them stay in their cowardly place of racism, their cowardly place of deriving a sense of self. Oh, dang it. I gotta go. I have to go and do some phone banking because we've all got to help turn out the vote. So I hope this has helped y'all. We'll watch a little closing video. This is your
America
website
was
called
founded
Redecide
on a
24.
dream of freedom, one that is yet to come true. It was freedom for some, freedom for the few, until we, the people, rose up and came together. From the Underground Railroad to Standing Rock, from Stonewall.
Nope. It stopped.
On a dream of freedom. Standing Rock. From Stonewall to Selma. We've pushed America towards that dream of freedom again and again and again. But there have always been those who use fear and division to cling to power. Now, once again, they are threatening to take away our freedoms, to control our own bodies, to vote and have the will of the people prevail, to love who we love. Progress often seems impossible. The truth is, we decide what's possible. You decide what's possible. We can build a country where all of us are free to thrive, a place where equality, justice, and liberty are real. And someday, when the next generation asks what we did in this moment to protect our freedoms, we'll be able to say everything we could.
It's not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee, but it's got 1.3 million views.
America was founded on a dream of
freedom, freedom to thrive. So please take that message away with you and text people you know, because making that connection, making a warm connection, just an I'm here, I see you. I see you. We are here. We inhabit this country together. And with the implication that we must act collectively to protect each other, to protect our doctor's choice. Our doctors need to have their hands unshackled to be able to choose what treatment is right to save our lives over the life of a zygote, because we can have another child if we live. We are not mere vessels for procreation. We are human beings with hopes and dreams and physical needs. And if we're hemorrhaging from a problematic pregnancy, we need preserving our life to be the primary consideration. And anyone who wants to mess with that and make women's bodies a legal gray area, well, we need to outvote the people who endorse that point of view. It's not just your opinion's valid, my opinion's valid. Stop endangering women's lives. If you know a woman, if you care about a woman or a girl, if you care about your own ability as a man to participate in family planning, to say, let's have children when we're ready for them, let's have birth control available to us. Let's be able to take my wife to the hospital and not sit with her as she bleeds unattended to in a waiting room because it's too legally contentious in a Republican-governed Congress country to have a septic uterus or an incomplete miscarriage. Pregnancies are dangerous time for women, which makes it, I guess, all the more rewarding that we manage, that we still go through this over and over again, and we still bring life into this world. But we cannot be cast aside as collateral damage to the performative piety of Republicans and Republican-leaning people who denigrate our worth. We cannot be a legal gray area. We have to have the ability to respond to what we learn from a scan. Oh, our baby that we wanted, that we loved, is missing some vital organs, has no chambers in their heart, cannot pump blood, is not forming any kidneys. We need the capacity to say, It's a hard choice to make, but we can have another child. This child shall not be born to suffer for a month or a day. We cannot be forced to proceed with an entire 9 months of a pregnancy with a child that doesn't have enough organs to live, a child that doesn't have a cranium, or a child that doesn't have, and there are different degrees, it's different decisions to everybody. We cannot impose our own decisions on others in this way. So maybe you would say it's more peaceful for me to continue with the whole pregnancy for 9 months, give birth to a baby that will live for a month or a day, and I'm happy to do that, and that will bring me peace, and I believe that will bring the baby peace, and the baby will get to experience 1 day or a week or a month in our arms, and I choose that. I anticipate that it will go well. And to make that choice is not just a privilege, it should be the constitutionally protected right. And for 50 years it was. I mean, for not all of that 50 years did we have the medical technology to have scans and to anticipate whether or not a baby had all the organs it needed to live. Anyway, I better go. Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you to everyone who watched. Thank you to replay viewers. Shout out to Twitter viewers who may be watching, but whose commentary I cannot see or engage with. Only commentary from YouTube or Twitch. But thank you in any case still for watching. Do you like a bit of the bookshelf being visible? I decided to move the green screen today so that you could see a little bit of my life. I like Shakespeare. I like great speeches of the world. I have a lot of books for my children to read and to do activities in. That's me. Vote for me. Vote for people you care about. Vote tomorrow like our lives depend on it, and you want to save the planet and save more immediately, you want to save our lives from being the subject of Russian roulette with our healthcare. Vote like you want your children to not have to participate in lockdown drills. Vote like you aren't scared if you get a text from your child in the middle of the day. Are they telling me that there's a mass shooter in their school? Vote like you want, like you believe in public safety. Vote like you give a damn. And reach out to other people like you give a damn and you believe in their ability to give a damn. That you haven't been brainwashed by the fallacy that government is inherently bad. You believe that governance is an organizing framework to bring public safety to the table. And I learned yesterday a quote from Anne Richards that said, if you don't have a seat at the table, you are on the menu. And I'm glad to see so many women running for public office. And I'm glad to see all of the folks that have put in their hard work and their passion into turning out the vote. And I'm going to go join them and help turn out the vote now. Cheers. Take care, everybody. Bye. See you later.